Welcome to the Outer Realm with Michelle DeRoche and Amelia Pisano. Airing live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Wednesday night segment of The Outer Realm. We're broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network 105.3 and 107.7 FM from the beautiful city of New Orleans. We are fully sponsored by the amazing people over at Folgers Coffee, who really have been a part of our journey since the very beginning. So thank you, Folgers. We appreciate you all so very much. Also, big thank you to Dr. Snick, aka the Sonic Surgeon, Justin Snicker, for his contribution of his time and his music and his voice for the intro and the outro. He is an award-winning composer of Halloween, horror, sci-fi, and dark wave electronic music, so check him out anywhere that good music can be found. Also, Steve McGinnis, who is responsible for the artwork behind the Outer Realm. So when you see that just beautiful, I guess so many compliments on that Raven, that is all Mr. Steve McGinnis. Find him on Instagram and Facebook. He does commission pieces and has great lineup of horror artwork ready to go. So tonight's really exciting for me because it's my compadre, my paranormal survivor compadre. So I've had the luxury of working with some phenomenal people with Our House Media, and Lynda Quirino is one of those people. And we have basically, you work with people, you become friends. I love it. And we've had her on the show before, real early days. So she was like one of our pioneers as a guest. And she's basically the first guest of 2023. Yes, that's right. First guest. And unfortunately, minus Bubbles, Amelia is not here. So before I forget, I want to make sure that we send her lots of love and lots of prayers and well wishes, because her daughter is going in for a kidney transplant tomorrow, and her husband is the donor. So she's got her husband and her daughter having surgery. So lots of love, Bubbles. We miss you bunches. So without further ado, bam, Lynda, hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. No complaining. Nobody really listens anyway. No, seriously, it's all good. It's all good. Hey, Wes, Tamara, Dave, Happy New Year to you as well. So how's everyone doing? Hugs and prayers, Bubbles. Yes, Bubbles, if you're listening. She has a real early morning, so I don't know if she'll be able to catch anything, but I know she would have loved to have been here for this. So, she loves you. So then I would have been having to put up the whole BFF crap all damn night.
Yeah, I know, right? It's true. It's like a mutual admiration society.
I know. It's great, though. It's great. So happy New Year. Oh, hey, Anne. How's it going? So that's my cousin. Yeah, put her up there. Here we go. There we go. Everybody say hello. But how are you? How are you? How was your New Year's? How was your holidays?
You know what? It was okay. I think, like everybody else, I was sort of expecting a different holiday, but of course, with all the hearts there. Oh my goodness! All these wonderful
Wes,
people.
I know, you big freaking schmoozer. We love you, though.
But no, I was expecting a different holiday. Like, I expected my sister to be here. I expected so much more to happen, but everything got lost, like all the luggage around the world, apparently. So.
Oh, nice, nice, yeah. It was a really, it was a tough one with this, super blizzard that went on, and I did not have my family here either, and I was like, okay, that's okay. So I ended up just, we hung out with the Chihuahuas.
That's good.
We still had a good meal because we had the food. So it's like, sorry, people, we got the food, we got the dogs, and there's something about being snowed in when you live in a haunted manor house. You know, it just like insulates even more, you know. So you just sit here quietly, you really hear things. It's just like great. Yeah. So it was good.
Good. Well, it is nice to get snowed in every once in a while. It's true. I mean, it was really quiet at home, which was lovely.
Quiet as
So, sometimes it is really good to do that during the
Mhm.
holidays because it can be really overwhelming. So, when
Yes,
you get a gift like this, and I'm looking at it that way,
right.
it's a really nice experience, to kind of snuggle and keep your
Yes.
pajamas on all day and
Stay in your gym jams. That's awesome. Hey, Brian.
it's good.
I know. Just stay in your gym jams. That's the best ever. You know, snuggle with the chihuahuas, watch some, not Christmas movies because I don't do those very well, but you know, but I actually worked through a good part of the holidays. I was even doing meetings on Christmas Day. I know. I'm a workaholic. I am, I admit it. But the network, like I said, is opening up all of its daytime slots to all new talent and shows from around the world. And so it's like, well, I'm only one person, so I take advantage of every little bit of time I have. And that was it. So um already we're getting started. Steve, good evening. Hey, you know what? I got Jack Hennifer's birthday. Okay, what? A haunting egg. Oh my gosh, yes. Okay, Jacques. 2 uses he could wear to actually investigate it. Joke. We used to joke around about this a few years ago. Yes, yes. Oh, yes, Jack. Those definitely likes to horse around with the wig. What people don't know is here's a little fun fact for those who may be just tuning in. The Outer Realm started in 2018
Oh my
with
gosh.
Jack, Kenna, and myself.
That's right.
We did. And it started out as a Q&A because we had a producer saying, you two need to do more together. Like, what? For real? Okay. So we did it. And Jack basically got crazy and says, I make a much better guest than I do a host. I mean, wait, you're not wrong. Okay. So we had a lot of fun. And of course, he's been a guest on the show and he will come back and be a guest on the show. And he was just a hoot. So then I asked Amelia I'm like, come on, we have lots of fun. Let's just do this and turned it into a fun thing. And it's really just grown and grown and grown. And here we are, 2023, and going strong with millions of listeners every night. Archives do really well. So we have to thank all of you guys for that because our guests are phenomenal and our listeners are phenomenal and the chat room is always phenomenal. So give yourselves all a pat on the back for being part of the Outer Realm family. We love and appreciate you all. What is this nonsense? Poor Jack.
Poor
Jack
Jack.
starts it. Jack starts it. I'm just saying.
Oh my
But
gosh.
anyway, tell me what you've been up to. Tell me what you've been up to. We're having like a paranormal survivor like reunion here.
I was
So
gonna say it is kind of a reunion. I don't know. Katie's not here though, and
no, we could always, Katie, if you listen, we'll give you a link. Bring Jack on, bring Katie on.
we could bring them all on because we're
I know,
all
it'd be
paranormal
fun.
survivors.
Survivors, absolutely. We have
Yeah,
loads of fun,
yeah.
loads of fun.
I know. But you know what, Michelle, it's always busy because, we always say, right? October is always the busiest month because apparently most people only experience paranormal activity in October. However, if you're a paranormal investigator, it's like, yeah, 367, 365.
Haven't been in this house. Yeah,
Always,
yeah.
always. It's always really busy. But this is
Mhm.
good. I like being busy. Sometimes
Mhm.
it's a little too busy, but that's why we have teams,
It's true. It's
right?
true. So are you still actively investigating then?
Yeah, we are. I mean, we actually just yesterday got wind of another case that's really close to home. We always do, the majority of our cases are usually, house investigations. So we do a lot of residentials.
Right.
Um, and I really enjoy those because they're so interesting. You learn so much about not only the people, which is
Mhm.
exciting because if you do this work, you do like people,
You
the
do.
dead and the
You have
undead and
to.
all
You
of that.
have to. I
You
know.
have to, right?
You don't really
Um,
feel like helping someone you don't like.
well, that's right. But what I like too is that every case is so different and you have to treat every case so differently.
Sure.
And it's so fascinating because, we've got like, I like to call them common denominators of experience a lot. Um,
Right.
but they're all different. They're all different. So yeah, we're busy. We're still actively investigating,
Well,
which is,
that's fun.
which is good.
Yeah, that's fun. I don't investigate anymore.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, no, busy, too busy. But a lot of our stuff is done through, remote viewing, remote clearings. And we went from doing between 50 and 70 a week to, oh yeah, down to about 30, 20, 30. Yeah. We had to scale back because it's strange, but it's just like the more we did, the more we were just being contacted. And, we just like, okay, but I mean, we have a good track record. We've got people stay clear, people who've even been through, I guess, different versions of exorcisms or hardcore blessings or deliverances. And I've seen some. I mean, I've participated in both. Aside from not, I'm going to say not Catholic exorcisms. So God, don't shoot me. But it really got to be. It really got to be crazy. So it is nice that we're being validated and that we've helped so many people. But it is really tiring. It's exhausting, as you know.
Yeah.
I just couldn't do them all. Like that really changed, as I'm sure you would know, with the pandemic. In-house investigating just sort of got shelved. So it's like, okay, that's fine. Let's just go do this remote viewing thing. Let's just do remote clearings.
Right.
And the volume of people that we were able to help, because me, I only work malevolent cases, right?
Yes.
That's all. That's always ever been that way. So to put a dent in it like that without leaving the comfort of my home was
Oh my
it kind
God.
of spoiled me. I'm like, you know, but yeah, it's good. So, but I thought I would miss it more. And amazingly, I think I've just become a bit of a recluse because I miss the people, I miss the interaction. Um, and for
Yeah.
me, I was still working too, doing a lot of consultations and stuff like that on shows, and so just still getting my little fill every now and then. So you
Yeah.
know,
Well, you're not alone because a lot of people have felt reclusive because of this whole pandemic thing. But again, it's interesting that you don't miss the investigative part of it. I mean, you're still investigating. It's just that you're doing
yeah,
it differently. That's really all it is.
it is. I think it's just my research has switched gears as well. I was turning down doing projects because now it's like you're this talking head now. Everything is done the pandemic days through Zoom, and okay, you're going to just be this expert. No, I can't. It's hard to take it seriously, but I'm this talking head on the screen. But I don't know. I just find that and they say this happens with investigators, that you make this transition from the paranormal into ufology. And I started really because of my other show, the Gray Zone Uncensored, that I do with Joe Montaldo. Everything there is information based, and it was 24 to 25 hours a week of straight research. And the things I was finding led me to a revelation that they're more connected than I thought. I started looking at different signs of people, contactees, and people with attachments. And this light went off. I went, "Oh my God, I'm an abductee." I knew. And so I started talking to my mom and family members, and they're like, "Yeah, yeah, they remember having these I'll say situations in their childhood, and my grandparents, and it just went on and on and on. Not that you don't have the attachments, like they do go hand in hand. I think if one door opens, it's a real fine line as to what comes out of the portal, sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
But it just switched me gears, and now I find it's like it would have to be a really incredible place. Like I do when I travel, I have to stay in haunted places. I have to, you can't, you have to be a part of it,
Of
right?
course you do. It's in your blood.
It's in my blood. I know. There
It's
we go.
totally in your blood.
I
Totally.
know it is. Okay, so for all the audio listeners, Cat Ward, I used to think the paranormal only meant ghosts. Then I fell down a rabbit hole and realized that's also UFOs, aliens, cryptids, 100%. 100%. Yes.
Totally agree. Totally
Yes.
agree.
So I,
That's interesting.
I think I just dig that whole other, I think I've just done everything for so long now that I can pretty well feel my way around it. So you're getting into all this other stuff. It's kind of cool. Like the last time you were on, you spoke about skinwalkers in your neck of the woods, which there's an example right there of something that's totally outside the norm.
Yeah, totally. It's really interesting because when we first started to have our paranormal meetings, because we have public meetings, um, we only really talked about, ghosts and hauntings, and people would volunteer information about whatever they were experiencing. And of course, they meet other people. They don't think they're crazy anymore because there are other people around them that are experiencing those things too. But
Mm-hmm.
as it grew, and as the years went by, people started to share much more experiences and different experiences. And that's when, people, not just the team, but the people around us and in our community started to kind of, I guess, connect the dots and realize that, yeah, there's this interconnectedness of all of this stuff.
Mm.
Skinwalker thing that just blew me away, because not only did we have, one or two sightings, but now it's like 4, 5, 6 sightings of the same kind of creature. People describe it exactly in the same way. And there are more things that they're bringing to light about this skinwalker type creature, which,
Yes.
is really cool. Like one of them more recently had said that they came into contact with it near the dog park. They were walking their dog early in the morning, and this
Wow.
thing kind of just came out of nowhere, out of the dog park. And the way that their animal, their dog, reacted to it was, it just didn't do anything. It didn't bark. It didn't sort of, kind of recoil in fear or anything like that. It was just silent. It didn't know what to make of it. And I thought that was really interesting as well, because
That
you
is
hear about
really
animals
interesting.
going crazy or
That's
barking
typical,
or
especially if you're trying to protect your owner.
right.
So what kind of descriptions do you get? Just because we're in the Wayback Machine now, but this is a whole other audience and so on. So why don't you just walk us through, because we have similar things, I guess they call them, wolf people. I'm
Right.
wondering if there's a similarity. So what are the descriptions and the type of behaviors and that you've seen with these things? Because I mean, Georgina, of all places, like
Of
it's,
all places, of
well,
all.
it's a small, happy little community.
Well, you're right. I mean, it's a small, happy community, but we have so much going on because we have the lake around us, which is really important, as you know.
Yes.
Um, and we have the indigenous population here as well. Very important. We have tons of UFO sightings. Years ago, we're talking 1991, I
Mm.
interviewed this gentleman who told me that at the base of Snake Island, he knew that there was a UFO launch pad, which I thought was fascinating. And he had seen craft coming out of the lake near Snake Island and going into the lake. So I thought that was interesting.
No
Um,
kidding.
but again, these skinwalkers, it started about, I'm going to say maybe 2015, 2016, where people started to report this. The first person who did, they were coming back, it was a couple, and they were coming back from a party. He, of course, stressed the fact that no, we did not have anything to drink. We were driving. We were stopping at the bank machine. This was their aim, was to stop at the bank machine. They slowed down to pull up to the bank machine, and this thing that they described as a humanoid figure that was on all fours that looked like a naked man with a larger head and very, very black eyes,
Oh,
right in front of them, stopped in the middle of the street. There was obviously nobody in the middle of the street. And it stared at them for what they thought was, 30 seconds, but probably was a fraction of a second, and then took off right in front of the bank and then kind of disappeared. So they decided that, rather than take money out of the bank that night, they might forego this.
they just like drive away.
Just a
Yeah.
little bit. But that really marked them, and they felt obligated to report this. And then, of course, not long after that, we're talking maybe 6 months, 8 months after that, in the south end of town, someone else reported the same creature. And again, a creature, humanoid, naked, looked like a man on all fours, larger head, big eyes. So what does that tell you?
Wow. Wes says it sounds like me. I'm like, wow, Wes. Do you have an indigenous community out there? Like, have you approached them about this?
Interestingly enough, we had a couple of people that talked to the team after one of our meetings, and they said, it's unfair to call it a skinwalker.
Okay.
It actually looks more like what people Google as the rake. And if you Google something, right? So it's, yeah. So it's one of those things where the indigenous community doesn't really want you to call it a skinwalker because it's not really that. It is something else. And I think the reason people call it skinwalker is because it's just skin.
Yes, yes. But it's also associated with witches and so on. It's a cultural thing. So I could see why they would want to, try to avoid that stigma. But rakes, I mean, they're terrifying in their own right.
Right.
So, like, have you had any, like, throughout these eyewitnesses, have you ever had any attacks, or whether animal attacks or people attacks, or do they pretty much keep to themselves? Do they come out and like full on? Like, what's their story out in Georgina?
They seem to startle people and run away. So no attacks, which is a fortunate thing.
Right.
Not yet anyway, but there have been quite a few sightings, and that kind of concerns me. And yet at the same time, I'm not too surprised because we do have a lot of, UFO sightings, alien sightings up here, and being surrounded by water and all of that. I'm really not that shocked, to tell you the honest truth.
Right. What kind of alien sightings do you have?
Well, a couple of people have reported, of course, the bright lights in the sky, of course.
Yes.
An elderly lady walking her dog a few years ago contacted us and said it was really an odd thing because she always took her dog out at a certain time every night, went outside, and there was this thing in the sky, and how she described it was different lights, like green, blue, red, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it was just hovering near her home. And she said it was surreal because it was as if nobody was outside. It was very quiet, very strange. She said it scared her. So she went back inside and was able to actually watch this thing through her spare room window, and it stuck around for a very long time. But again, she said it was odd because nobody seemed to be around in the neighborhood. And I thought that was interesting.
It was like a mass, like, visitation, or
Strange.
it is. I'd be curious to see if she ended up having any experiences throughout the night, missing time, things of that nature. Because usually they say the theory is if you see one, it's not your first time.
Right.
I agree with Wes on being an interdimensionary being. With going back to the break, I do completely believe that as well. I do believe that as well.
I do too.
Yeah.
100%.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, Wayne. Similar dogman sightings. I saw a large, yeah, this did happen right up front of the house. I saw a large, skinny, shaggy, long-haired, what appeared to be a dog in conversation, loping down the street. It was so large that it galloped like a horse, more so than it was a dog. Gave me an unsettling feeling. I have heard this same account many times
Really?
in Southern Ontario. They just seem to be big, shaggy, long-legged things with really long snouts. They're just really mangy looking. Besides that, there's lots of sightings of those. We call them like dogman wolf people. And I think the first account, let me know if you've had anything like this out your neck of the woods. I'm probably thinking you do. Um, First came to my attention from a woman living out in Elmira. No, sorry, is it no, Elmira?
Mhm.
It's North Guelph.
Okay.
And she said she was visiting her grandmother. They had a big farm out there. And the grandmother always said, do not go near the wood line, like the woods. They had like a couple hundred acres. So she goes, do not go near the edge of the property where the forest starts because that's where the wolf people live. And she's like, okay. So, I mean, she just was fear of God instilled into her from a very young age. But she said when she turned 16, she decided, she started walking through the property. She made it halfway, I guess from where the house was to the where the forest line wasn't like a couple hundred acres because the house was closer to the woods. But she said she stopped because she could see five figures walking. So as she got closer, they stopped and they looked, and she said they were wolves, and
Wow.
they were tall, and they were walking. And it's just like, oh gosh, if I had honestly a dollar for how many times I heard similar stories throughout the last 20 years, it seems to definitely there's something.
Well, that's something I've got to bring up at the next meeting because honestly, people see the most incredible things. In the same vein, we've had some people tell us that they've experienced these beings. They don't even know exactly what they are because they describe them as being monstrous. So whatever that means, because monstrous means different things to different people.
Correct.
Um,
Yes.
but very, very tall, almost ape-like. So that kind of sounds like Sasquatchy to
It
me,
does. Yes,
right?
it does. It does.
Yeah, and
They're out there.
mostly
They're out your way. Just
they
saying.
are, absolutely.
Yeah.
And most people that talk about them in the sort of northern edge of Georgina. So we're talking like Pefferlaw, and beyond.
Right.
But they talk about them being monstrous and ape-like. And
Right.
I can remember when I was with Toronto Ghosts and Hauntings Research
Yes.
Society, I remember people talking about that even then, and thinking, boy, that's really strange. But I
Mm,
haven't heard stories like this in a little while,
mm,
and I'm curious to find out, are
mhm.
there? I mean, well, we know that there are creatures like that. They're all throughout Canada,
Oh,
and the
I
states.
I hear tons of stories. I mean, people have been on the show, people have written in. I can give in a personal account, not even myself personally, but I had a family member who had 100 acres over in Bancroft.
Oh,
Yeah, not too far from Algonquin Park either. And he was sort of a caretaker for the property. We're just like, hired him just to be a caretaker. And he was of Indigenous descent as well. And I said, okay, this is all you have to do. And I would joke around, right? And I'd say, okay, because I learned something on the show from having guests on. And they started saying, okay, well, whatever you do, don't go out, for example, and start banging pots and pans around trying to scare them because they take that as a sign of war. I'm like, okay, noted. You
oh,
know, I'm taking all this stuff in. I'm like, okay, okay. So I text, our guy out there. I'm like, okay, by the way, something goes on. Do not, I repeat, do not go out there. And he was just, I think, getting wigged out, but he was a pretty good sport. But he did say to me, he goes, here's what's really strange. He goes, 5 o'clock in the morning, I could hear knocking on a tree, like
Right.
tree knocking, right? Or tapping, and he goes, and I know there's somebody out chopping wood on your property at 5 a.m. I'm just going, well, that's interesting.
Wow.
But I have to say, after he left and we went up just to, clean up the quarters and stuff, he had the sage bag out. He had
I
the
love it.
tobacco. And I'm going, what the heck were you actually experiencing out here? He left in a hurry.
I bet. I bet.
Yeah. But he started putting two and two together. I'm like, so I'm thinking, let's get back to this property too. Maybe some investigating. It has everything. It's got a lake on it. It's got a river that runs in behind it. It's got, caves and everything way up in the back. So it pretty much, from what I understand, has everything that would be enticing to such a being. And, I watched this real popular show. I'm just going to say it, darn it. Paranormal Caught on Camera. I'll give it a plug.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
have to be careful with that. I'm only allowed to plug so many things. And they actually showed a video in Bancroft of a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch just walking in a field beside the road, and a family captured it.
Wow.
So I thought, there's our guy. I'm like, okay, this could have been, it wasn't
There's
far.
only one, and there he is.
Right. I know, there he is. But I
There
mean,
he
let's face it, you're up against Algonquin Park, which is like, what is it, like 20,000 square acres of,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
right, there we
Of
go.
trees
Right.
that they can knock on, Michelle.
And they found our little 100 acres. So either that or my guy was just like, something, I don't know. He wasn't in the habit of doing that. So I have to think, well, okay.
Yeah.
It says, I wonder how many of these beings are thought forms that are created by people. Then through the power of suggestion, other people witness these beings. Sometimes people are truly open to the suggestion. They can actually see if it's real or not. Like a tulpa. Slender Man is a tulpa, which basically was a thought form that was created. And people started chiming in and giving it characteristics. But then it got weird because there were sightings of him throughout the world. And this is a thought form.
Right. Right.
So how powerful are we?
Well, we're pretty powerful. We really are. I mean, when you think about it, I think we're way more powerful than we give ourselves credit for. And think about poltergeists, right? How people will create
It's
something
true.
outside of themselves that can create havoc, right? So, yeah,
Mhm.
1,000%.
See, I am a big believer in that. It's so hard filming all the time because everybody wants the D word. That's what you want. I
Yeah.
could give you like how many different answers, and you're going to always come back to that one. But it could be this, right? Well, I suppose. Sure. Okay, just say it. Okay, just say it. Okay. But realistically, I am more level-headed than that. People, I don't run around screaming demon all the time. But I do believe in that we are powerful beings, and I do believe in telekinesis and psychokinesis and projecting so much energy that you can create footsteps, that you can create doors to open and close, and you can table or chair stacking. Like,
Yeah.
do you ever run into that problem when you're investigating? I find it's so difficult. It's easier for someone to believe there's a demon in the house than it is for them to believe that they're a powerful being that can project.
Oh, absolutely.
How do you deal with that?
It's difficult, because there's so many people that want so badly to experience something. And I know you've come across this as well. They want so much to experience something that they really do create it themselves.
Yes.
And that's so hard because you have to be so tactful as a paranormal investigator. You kind of have to be a psychologist sometimes.
It's true.
You
I
really
took a
do.
counseling course just so I knew how to properly communicate with people. Don't say something stupid.
Yeah, it's hard, right? It's
It
hard.
is. Yeah.
I mean, how do you tell someone, yeah, it's you, when you really know that they're going to look at you and say, what, are you crazy?
I send them a link. I've learned. I send them a link with a description of psychokinesis, and I'll be very delicate. I'll say, if you can see yourself in here,
Right.
just maybe.
Smart.
And because they read it and they're like, oh my goodness, yes, I have experienced this. So they don't want to just come out and say anything to you, for example. They may read it and see it for themselves, because you really do have to be so delicate with it, because you could throw them the other way, right? So uh,
Yes.
it can also be dangerous if they create something. Oh, yes.
No
Yes,
kidding. No kidding.
absolutely. My daughter, when she was going through puberty, used to project energy, and she would message me while I was working, and she's just, okay, there's a statue on the table, and it just started moving by itself. And I'm like, I know I'm not haunted, knock it off. It's that easy, calmly knock it off. She goes, I can't do that. You're doing it.
Oh my
Believe me, you're doing it.
I
But
love it.
when you see things as a kid and you don't watch horror movies, you can't explain it. When you see it again as an adult, you just shake your head. Yes, absolutely. I think common sense with many adults. Kat says, my daughter and I were driving here in the Ottawa Valley about 3 years ago. She saw it being run across the road. Her description was similar, to the rake. And she says it wasn't that. I keep looking for it whenever I'm driving on that road. And why? That'd be my
Right.
question. Why are you looking for it? you know,
Why would you look for it?
yeah, these are telepathic beings, Kat.
Oh my gosh.
Careful what you wish for. It's something I say, you never know, you end up with a friend.
It's true.
So do you have so I can go the other way, she says. Okay, that makes sense. I get that. So okay, I'll let you have that one.
I love it.
But with investigating, what do you find has been the most prominent with your investigations? Is it just people? Because I get a lot of people that say, I just want to know what's in the house. Or they have people who are, extraterrestrials. You have people who are basically, no, there's something very malevolent. It's me. you know,
Right. Right.
what do you find?
Do you know what? With us, for the most part, it's people that are experiencing things in their home that is scary to them. So,
Right.
whatever it happens to be, whether it's, residual energy,
Mm,
whether they've dredged something up, because put it this way, we live in an area where we're north of Toronto. Toronto is very, very expensive. People move north because they can afford
right.
more of a house
Hmm.
in this area.
Sure.
We have a lot of old cottages, so people
Hmm.
are either tearing them down, rebuilding, or they're buying the old cottages and they're renovating. So they're tearing things out, they're moving things,
They're
and we
changing the
all know,
law of the property. The
right? So
whole.
we all know what that can do.
Sure.
It can dredge up a lot of stuff. So
Mm,
that's normally what we're called in to investigate is, people experiencing things they can't explain.
mhm.
Um, but also, I think, and I mean, I think you might agree with me, seeing as though, we were both on one of those paranormal shows at one point in our lives. Um, People watch a lot of paranormal TV. And they've been cooped up with this pandemic and they've had a lot of time to think about
Right.
things.
Yes.
They've been in their own environment, which, prior to the pandemic, they left for extended periods of time and
Mm,
only spent short periods of time in before they left again to do whatever
yes.
they were going to do. So
Yeah.
now, of course, they're experiencing more, right? They're paying attention to their environment and they're trying to get used to it. They're renovating it so that it can be more sort of useful to them because they're working
Mm,
from home, et cetera, et cetera. So we're
mm.
seeing a lot more of that kind of thing where people are saying, okay, I'm questioning my environment now and something's not right.
Well, I
Yeah.
like how you basically said, like, people are paying attention. I think that's a big one because, sometimes I've always tried to tell people they will leave signs all the time, but I think life just keeps us so busy. You're working, come home, get dinner ready, get the kids, got homework, take the dog out. Like we just don't really slow down long enough to pay attention to what's going on. The example I always use is you put a glass on the table, walk away, go to work, come home, the glass is moved. Will you say to yourself, oh, that glass is moved? Or will you say to yourself, oh yeah, I left the glass on the table, my bad. You know, I know better, and I would still come home and say, oh gosh, just should have put that away before I left. We don't focus. But
No.
if you're alone with your thoughts, with your surroundings, or maybe there's just too much togetherness, so you start bickering. And it's sad if you have people with, with mental health, for example, bad anxiety or depression, that energy sort of gets trapped, and it just compounds. If you don't know how to clear your space, I think it would just compound, arguing, it's
Yes.
stressful times. There were stressful times for
That's
many
very,
people.
very true. That's so true. And
You
I mean,
know.
it's so true that this whole situation in our lives
Mhm.
really did dredge up a lot of, personal experiences and paying attention more and more to, not only your environment, but your internal environment, right?
Sure.
Um, and yeah, it's been really challenging. But if you're in this field, it is absolutely fascinating what it all
Oh,
did, right?
oh, absolutely, absolutely. But, then on the flip side is you have people who have suffered loss, from everything as well. So now you have the grievers. It's
Right.
like I say, people who are grieving want that sign from their loved one so desperately that sometimes maybe something else comes in, or because they're anticipating or just desperately asking for
Right.
that. Tamara says you find a spike in people needing help because they're home now. So they experience stuff at home.
100%. Absolutely. Absolutely. Because when you're at home, you are paying attention to what's going on around you. And
Hmm.
again, if you're spending more time there,
Hmm.
all those pops and cracks and and footsteps that you
True.
weren't there to hear before, you're
Right.
there now, right? So yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely,
exactly.
for sure, for
Even if
sure.
it's the house settling, you're just more nervous automatically, you know.
Right,
Well, we
right.
thought we knew a lot of the sounds in this house. We've heard a few new ones. We're like, "Hmm, hmm, that's what you need." Kat says, Linda, you mentioned earlier more people are reporting more skinwalkers in your area. Do you believe people are simply reporting more, or are there more of these creatures? So, do you think people are reporting them more, or are there actually more? So, we'll backtrack a little bit.
I think that people are really reporting them more. And the reason I say that is because people are more aware that we're in existence, that there is a paranormal society, there is somebody in town that is willing to listen, and somebody in town that you can report these things to.
Hmm.
Because so many years, I really believe that people didn't even know that we existed. And I mean,
Mhm.
even this year, people have been saying, really? We have a paranormal society?
Yeah, wow.
We had a, and you know what, Michelle, like I've been doing this well, this year will be 42 years, which is kind of
Gosh, you're
insane.
definitely doing your time, I'd say.
Insane. I know.
Yeah.
But we've existed in Georgina for 10 years. So
Mm.
this year will be our 11th year that we've been here.
Wow.
But again, you know what? If you're not aware, if you aren't connected with somebody who's having these experiences that knows that we exist, or if you're not on social media or whatever, you're not going to know that we
Mm,
exist. So you won't have
for
anybody
sure.
really to report this to. So I
For
like to
sure.
think that there's more in our area now. I mean, just because that's who I am. I like to think that there's more stuff happening, but
Like a
whatever,
cat. Look at she's being just like a suck up. You don't look
right?
old enough to have been investigating that long. We love you,
Aren't you
Kat.
sweet? Oh my God.
I know. We love you. We love you.
I don't
Actually,
know.
Linda
Amelia
left her
might have a new
comment with that.
BFF.
I know. Keep it coming.
Seriously.
So you have, I mean, being a paranormal group, you've had this group for quite some time, and have you had a pretty solid team? I know at CMH we've been, you know, pretty much solid from a bit rocky, I think, early years, and by the time we weeded everybody out, we've been solid now for at least 15 to 17 years.
Wow. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
no problems at all. Yeah, I mean, we need to investigate. I don't have to say anything. Everybody knows what they have to do. They can usually tell by I'm very expressive.
Yeah.
I'm very expressive. They could tell by the look on my face what needs to be done, what to do, what not to do. I
Right.
would trust. I mean, everyone, pretty much has done their media. I'm always very like, yeah, free for all, everybody get on there. But I can trust them to communicate properly. I can trust them to communicate with the people we assist properly, to investigate properly. I've been very fortunate because I understand that that's not really a thing for a lot of people. Have you had any issues like that? Or are you guys pretty solid for the most part?
We've had our bumps over the
Mm,
years. Right now, I can absolutely say that we have a very solid team. And one of the reasons we do right now is because we all have a meeting of the minds. And I think that's so important. I mean, if you share the same philosophy, if you share so many of the same sort of ideals, I think it can work. If you have members of your team that you really don't see eye to eye with, or there's friction in some way,
mm,
that there's something that you need to do. And
right.
yeah, I mean, we've had our bumps and grinds along the way, but
Mhm,
I think every team does until you find the
I agree.
people that you resonate with,
Mhm,
because you all have to investigate in the same way and really have the same philosophy.
mhm,
Otherwise, it's not going to work. I mean, if you're the kind of team where you love having 19 cameras, 18,000 feet of coaxial cable, and, all kinds of instrumentation,
mm,
apps, and this and that, then, you've got to jive with the other members of your team who might
you
feel the
do.
same way. But
You
if
do.
you're like with us, Georgina Paranormal, we're really grassroots. And I always tell people, we don't go in with a million pieces of equipment and all of that. That's really not who we are.
Mhm,
Um, and you have to understand, I've been in this a long time.
mm.
When I first started, I mean, we didn't have EMF detectors. We didn't have
Lots of
all of
toys.
these. Yeah, we didn't
Yeah,
have all these toys. Like I had a
no.
tape recorder
Yeah,
that
go in with your good old common sense,
remember?
pad,
Yeah,
paper, recorder, that's about it. Yeah.
exactly, right?
I think
So
you get to that point where it's expected of you. Like I've always done public events where people want to know, does this equipment exist? Does it work?
yes. Oh
So I
god,
would incorporate it in because that's what I would get brought in to do. I say, yes, it
me too.
exists. It's overpriced. Don't buy it. You can buy this. It'll do the same thing,
Yeah,
or don't buy it at all, or just use your head instead, or just a lot of different examples. And when people look at the stuff that's out there, I just they're like, "Wow, this is amazing. We want to go and buy it all." I'm like, "You'll never use any of it." I
mm,
don't even right to the end of my investigating, which was pretty much just before everything hit. I didn't use it. I love my favorite people always say, "Well, I'll ask you the same thing, but what were your favorites?" I like the Polaroid camera. I still am old school. I prefer a cassette
yes.
instead of a digital recorder, even though I've got phenomenal high-tech recorders. I'm
Yep.
sorry, and only use one side so it doesn't bleed over because I'm weird like that too. And pen, paper, listen, listen, right?
Listen. Yeah, listen and feel. And I think
Yes.
that's the thing. People don't do that. Paranormal teams, if they're really into the hype, and they watch all those shows and they really think that it's important to have all of this equipment, et cetera, ad nauseum. I think they forget the main goal of all of this is to immerse yourself in the environment
Mhm.
and to actually listen and feel what you're experiencing, what is around you, what the environment is all about, and what the environment can tell you,
That's right.
that instrumentation can't, because
No,
we all know that instrumentation is
that's
not
right.
all that reliable. So,
It's true.
yeah,
Especially if you end up in an area, like people will even look at high levels of EMF or even carbon monoxide. They would look at me like I had two heads when I came in with a carbon monoxide detector. Sorry,
right,
people need to check the obvious first,
right,
but I mean, you have to, let me get to some question for you because it'll start going. Do you feel more things are walking around out of the dark now so people can see them? Or let's elaborate on that. Do you think people are opening up? We're evolving, awakening, paying attention.
Oh, 1,000%. I mean, we get so many reports from people that say things like, my whole life, I've never experienced anything. I mean, not even as, so much as finding a dime on the floor. And people say, oh, well, I find dimes all the time. And that's messages. I never got anything like that. And then all of a sudden, bam, these things are happening. Or I think I'm losing my mind because,
Right.
I'm 60 years old and I've never experienced, and then all of a sudden, yeah, I really do. I think people are paying more attention, number
Hmm.
one. Number
Hmm.
two, I think we're in a very exciting time in
Hmm.
this world, in this universe, that so many things are happening right now, that so many things are opening up. People might call them portals. I don't know, whatever you want to call them,
Right.
things are happening. And I think that if you're sensitive to them, amazing things can happen and you're going to be experiencing way more than you ever thought possible. But
Mm.
even people who aren't sensitive are suddenly sort of coming out of the woodwork and talking about things more. I don't know.
Yeah,
Are you experiencing?
aliens. I'm kidding. No, yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I think people are starting to pay attention. People are waking up, I guess, as how I like to call it. But I mean, I don't know. I think you have to just keep going. Don't let it scare you. Ah, Bart. Hey, Bart. Bart and I work together every week, and he's also coming on board with his own show. And I know it's going to all be about consciousness. It's going to be like amazing. It's going to be one of the daytime shows. But he says, listen, feel, and trust what your body's picking up. That's what gets my vote. I use a form of muscle testing or applied kinesiology.
Oh, wow.
Yes, he's very in tune with himself and everything. And yes, Wayne, we find dimes in the house all the time. It's true. We had a show that was filming here, and coins were dropping from the ceiling.
I love it.
We could hear the coins drop, and the crew was just losing their minds. They're like, "Come on, this isn't a thing." We're all sitting there. We're just like, it's like, it's like just they caught it on camera. It did happen. It did happen. So yeah,
Wow.
this house loves to give it up. Hello, how are you? Here we go. There's a newbie here. Uh, a turkey thermometer for equipment. Okay, that's a crazy story. Let
Okay.
let's just say yes, I did work with somebody, and that was part of the kit.
Really?
I'm not kidding.
And how did that work?
Not very well.
Okay.
He claimed it was like a temperature thing, and he'd put it out there, and I'd be like, okay, but what do I know? Everyone's got their techniques.
That's true. Yes.
Everybody's got their techniques, so
Yes. They're idiosyncrasies. Mhm.
it's true. It's something.
Yes. Yes.
It's something. Kat says, this is for both of you. A lot of people in the past 3 years or so feel like there's been a shift and that we're in a different dimension, a different earth. Yep. What are your thoughts on this? Are you talking about the looking glass? They're looking at the looking glass. Yes, yes, yes. That's a good one, Linda. Take it away. You're the guest. I'll
Yeah.
jump in later.
It's kind of like what I had said, I think, a little bit earlier, in
Yeah.
that it's a really exciting time because I think that people are, I don't know, maybe it's part of our minds that are awakening right now.
Mm,
But I think, it's the whole interconnectedness of it all. I think, yeah, that this is a really exciting time. I think something in our universe
mm.
is suddenly coming to light. I think people are experiencing things more and more. And yeah, Kat, I think, yeah, there's something going on. I don't know how to explain it properly, but I'm
Mm.
sure, Michelle, you will be able to explain it properly. And the looking glass, you're right, through the looking glass, I've heard that expression.
Yes, that is actually a really big thing right now, the looking glass. It's believed that there are people who, have you ever heard, let me back up a minute. Have you ever heard of a device called a chronovisor?
No.
It's supposed to be this pretty modern piece of equipment that has surfaced, let's say around the 70s, 80s,
Okay.
and where you can look at it, the looking glass, back in time, back in
Okay.
time, forward in time. There were allegedly photographs of Christ taken, all kinds of things, and there's apparently one of these that sit in the Vatican. And there's apparently another organization that's got one as well. So, of course, because people can go back and forth, like if you're getting to CIA things, go back and forth, for your own agendas, you can create things to happen. And there's another group for the good of man. I think they're called the Guardians of the Looking Glass. You guys can go check them out on YouTube. They get yanked down pretty often. We had a guest called Frank Jacob, who's been on a couple of times, and he's a really big spokesman for this. And he's talked about it very avidly as well. So shifting, some people believe since CERN got reactivated or activated, that it has shifted us over and that we are in the wrong reality. Or you
Wow.
could just believe we're in a matrix altogether and it just doesn't matter. So what I'm saying, that could be a whole other show.
No
So,
kidding.
but there's a lot of theories around that. And they say, well, we're in the wrong time, that we should have, if you think back to your life, even as a child, just how quiet things were, and just, certain paths were going on, and all of a sudden it's almost like some people don't even have recollection. They just are in like this time, which is just so, like, it could be a great time. I'm just happy to be alive. So it doesn't matter which dimension I'm in right now. But there are those people who really believe that we're in a bad spot and that we have to try to shift back. And I wonder if that tends to go back to manifesting your reality.
Well, that's true. I mean, it is all about intention. It is all
Yeah.
about manifestation. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. You talk to some people who say, this is a really awful time
Mm,
because, look at all of the weather patterns.
yeah.
Something has shifted that has made everything just kind of eerie and witchy and odd. And I mean, and they equate eerie, witchy, and odd with bad. Some people equate it with good.
Right.
I mean,
Some of us equate
my
that kind of
goddaughter, yeah,
weirdness
my
with greatness.
goddaughter would say, "Excuse me, what's the problem?" Um,
Yes.
but, and yet I seem to look at it as an exciting time because, I like to learn. I'm really into learning and into research and tapping into things, that
Yes.
just, and I think it's exciting because there is so much to learn and so many things are coming to light that, I mean, I didn't know about this device that apparently is in the Vatican. This is a really, now
I
I have to
I
look it up.
stumbled onto it because I was doing research for one of the other shows, and and for Grey Zone, it was like mysterious, um, mysterious devices or ancient technology, and this thing surfaced. I'm like, what is this? What is this voodoo? I need to learn more about it. And it was really, really fascinating.
Mm.
But I mean, who knows what's still sitting there in the Vatican? There's all kinds of great stuff in there,
Oh
you
my
know.
gosh.
But
Yeah,
it is definitely interesting. Um, I don't know, man. You live in this time, you have to make the best of it.
we do.
People are much more aware these days and open to the idea of exploring new ways of connecting with their spirituality and senses. Yes, I
That's true.
also I agree with that as well.
That's
Um, Hold on here. May I ask where this was? You think you lost both of us. Where, may I ask where this was?
hmm.
Just chime in there at any point.
That's all.
Or is it this right here? Okay. Is this a question you were asking, Tamara's question? I put talcum powder down in a closed haunted hotel where we were working. A blocked off hallway had footprints in the morning, and we were the only people with access. Okay, great. And okay. And question answered. Up in Northern Ontario, late 80s to 90s. The hotel is gone. Okay,
Oh,
there we are. Yes, okay.
there you go. There
Only
you
the host. I was trying to keep up with you guys.
love it.
I
And
know
the
some.
talcum powder, Michelle, this is interesting because I remember talking to sort of a fledgling paranormal investigator just recently, and she was hilarious. She was like, "So, what did you do way back when?" And I'm thinking, well, way back when, okay, so 43 years. I suppose that
Yeah,
was when.
that's
Um,
a way back machine.
right? And I mean, we used all kinds of really neat things like talcum powder. I used to
Yes.
yeah, but I used to pack little Kool-Aid packets actually in
Oh,
my
okay.
kit because, you know, sometimes talcum powder wasn't available or it would
Yes.
glom and Kool-Aid was great. You just put Kool-Aid on the floor as well, you know,
Mm.
or set an object in Kool-Aid and then leave the room, seal it off and see if it moved, that kind of stuff. So
Right,
yeah, we
right.
used to use stuff like that, and we should really go back to using stuff like that
It's
because
actually brilliant, but people don't forget to put a camera on wherever it is you're experimenting. Because 'cause I've seen people do it and go, "We caught this." I'm like, "Where?" Right? So, I actually did use it at one location where there was an alleged, little growly, and they had put, um, baby powder, but they took it one step further and they put it under a glass globe,
ah,
and there was looked like a three-fingered thing that imprinted into it.
that's amazing.
Did get photos,
That's
but with the
amazing.
camera, you couldn't catch it. It's like nothing happened. Like
Right.
nothing came in. The camera caught nothing, but yet there was this print.
Wow.
So it was interesting, but this is the kind of place that delivered pretty much all the time. So it was a great place to experiment with. Do you have any places that you can go just to experiment with, like, test your resilience or your skills or your equipment or, you know, of
Well, we've got a few places up here in Georgina, some which, you know, we can't really mention,
course. Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, we have experimented with some, you know, new pieces of equipment or whatever that we wanna see if they work or whatever, and we
Yeah.
we tend to go to specific locations, and they never disappoint. I mean,
Right.
that's the thing, you know, you've got those
Yes.
tried and true locations. One of them, I have to say, is the Pioneer Village up here. For some
Oh,
reason, and it's funny how most pioneer villages, and when you talk to people in smaller towns that have them, they'll
yeah.
say the same thing. There's a lot of residual energy in
Yeah.
pioneer
Yeah.
villages, of course, but there's also a lot of active spirits and a lot of intelligent spirits wandering around, and it's kind of interesting to experiment there because you never know who's going to be coming in and out. They're fascinating places, really.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I love the history. You have some spirits who just still, I love it when they're caught in their time. And I know I shouldn't say that, but you just have an entirely different investigation when you're dealing with, a spirit individual who, I guess I say simpler times
Yes.
before technology,
Yes.
before a lot of this stuff. So you tend to, um, I don't know, you tend to just, for me, it's always a learning experience. If I had to say, you know, investigating, if there are things I really miss, it would be those kind of things.
Yeah, I totally understand that. And as an investigator, I think it's so important to be really sensitive to that as well. I mean,
Yes.
you know, if you think about it, and we talk about this a lot when we do our public
Mm,
talks and public investigations, which, I mean, it's not that I'm not fond of them, but it's like people expect certain things when you do
mhm.
them.
Yeah.
But I often talk about the fact that, you know, if you're in a specific location, um, some of the spirits that you're communicating with, they don't know what this little instrument
I
is,
catch.
right? That has all the lights on it. They might know what a compass is, or,
That's right.
you know, they might know what bells are, but they don't know what certain instruments are, and they get upset. They get afraid. So
Mhm,
to be very sensitive yourself and very tactful when
mhm.
you're doing any kind of investigating. Not only tactful with your clients, but you know, tactful with the spirits
I
too.
agree.
So,
I agree. I think I'm glad you brought that up because I think you do see some of this on some of the investigative shows. Okay, we want you to flick this light on or do this or do that. So lights didn't exist for some, I mean, per se,
yeah,
like electricity per se. I have communicated with spirits that were, you're out in the country. I mean, you're lighting candles, they don't know what a flashlight is.
no,
Like there's just, I think you have to really research, the location. When I did the events at Casa Loma, because I did them up there for like 5 years,
yes,
and I would try when I was teaching people who were coming to have their experiences. And I said, look, just what you have an advantage of that some locations don't are photos of the original family. And it's a matter of saying, okay, this is the family. You'll see photos going back 100 years of this property. When you're asking a question, try to put yourself back in time and communicate and ask questions based on the area that you're in, that the family would understand, and you may just get something. But then what do you do when you have a situation where the spirits may not know they passed and you're sitting there going, is there anybody here? And you have a spirit person going, hello,
right,
I'm right here, right? Like,
right.
it's hard to have a proper line. You have to almost behave like you actually, because not everybody can see, but you almost have to have a line of questioning that is neutral to both. And yes, Trish, they don't all speak the same language either.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, that's another thing too, right? There's that meme, like, why are we in a 900-year-old castle in Romania, and
Uh,
you're thinking that they're speaking English to us?
that's well, it makes me wonder, is there like a language barrier? I can only speak for myself when I was in the haunted forest.
Right,
And Adriana, of course, is with me. She is Romanian. But
right.
I basically said through the EVPs, I said, "Can you please answer in English?" And at this point, I'm in my mind, I'm like, "Is there a language barrier?" So this is kind of a test for me also. So she asked in Romanian, "Can you please speak in English also?" So then when the answers started coming out, we would hear da, which is yes in Romanian, and they would say yes.
Wow.
So that was a bit of an experiment, weird place to experiment on top of a mountain, in this
Right.
crazy forest. But it basically it made me realize I think there may not be a language barrier.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because often, because I started out doing what I do in Montreal, because that's where I'm from.
Yes.
And I can remember doing some investigating in my teens, early 20s,
Yeah.
and speaking French,
Mhm.
um, and getting, answers that I could discern in English, which I thought was interesting. So when you look at it, I think you're right. I mean, there's a universal language, perhaps, um,
Yeah.
out
Yeah.
there. I mean, telepathy is a universal language. Doesn't matter if you're English, French, Italian,
Yes.
Greek, whatever. Um,
Yes.
so
Yes.
yeah, I think so. I think, we are really all equal. When we go back to the mothership, we can all speak the same language.
It's true. If you can think it, dang it, and get an answer in whichever,
That's
you
right.
know. But when you talk about it that way, though, it makes you also wonder, people who are doing seances and
Yes.
Ouija boards, things of that nature, spirit communication. If
Yeah.
you've got something in your head, because I always say, okay, if you want to experiment with that, just clear your mind.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, are you the one prompting the movement with the thought? You're asking a question in your head, you might for a split second go, and that's sometimes all it takes,
That's true.
right?
That is so true. You're right.
There we
Wes.
go. Wayne says, I found that wearing period clothing and speaking properly, no slang, I often get positive results with these simple techniques. See, I can get that too.
Mhm.
Slang I mean, okay, I'm sure every generation has had its slang, but you're going to deal with a Victorian spirit, for example, or even older.
Yes.
How do you get around the slang?
Right. Well, Michelle, it kind of makes me think back to, like, you probably know John Sable,
Oh,
um,
yes. Yes, I
the
do.
whole ghost excavation thing
Yes.
where,
Yeah, I know
I mean,
John well.
right? And that's so fascinating
Hmm.
because, and that harkens back to exactly what Wayne says,
Yeah.
um, if you dress the part, if you
Mm.
speak the part, are they going to be more willing to communicate, be more willing
Mm.
to show themselves in some way?
I think if a spirit is grounded and they don't realize that they pass on, then you're one of them. For example, if you go in on a battlefield with a red coat or a blue coat or just a soldier with that mentality, and you're saying, "This is where I am," I think they would relate better than if you show up like with crazy, flashy red hair,
Right.
saying, "Hey, hey,"
Right.
So, just saying, "I know my," it's just it can work for you and it can go against you, right?
It's
Which brings
true.
me to this. Maybe language is energetically not vocal to the spirits.
I agree. I think that's
That's a good
probably
one.
very true.
Yeah,
Very true. Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I think there's God, you guys. I always have such an intelligent chat room.
I
It's just
love this. I know.
I
I love
I
this. It's
I
great.
know it's just like a Q&A. You're just and just, bouncing ideas around. I always say I love to bounce the ideas around. I investigated the Hinsdale house and got EVPs answering back in French, and in different locations, I got some responses in other English or in other languages. I've done that, Niagara on the Lake, actually. A French spirit came through, so I started speaking in French, and she would respond in French, and
Wow.
other spirits are going, "What?" So, I don't know, it's very strange. I tried it also, when I actually bit the bullet and tried to communicate with, Father Saunier at Rennes Chateau, because I had a photograph of him and he was following me, and I
Oh,
caught him on camera, and so I thought, "Okay, I'm just going to communicate," and, nope, I did not get any EVPs at all with him, but, in communicating, mentally, you could
yes.
get him, remote viewing, things like that, we've been able to communicate with him. And of course, he's comes to the ghost box, things like that. It's like, and basically said, I was following you. Great. So spirits are fun. So
It can be.
this is my life.
It can be.
There's no different when communicating with plants or animals. We use pictures in our mind. I love that one. Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you,
Oh,
Tamara. You
it's so
guys are fun. We
sweet.
tried. It's always an adventure.
Right.
Yes, I know when I investigated the Gettysburg battlefield in a Confederate uniform, the atmosphere was electric. I do not doubt that at all. So
Wow.
I've been to Gettysburg a couple times, and the energy is phenomenal to start with. So I can imagine you just getting yourself into the thralls of it in costume, no less.
That
So
would be amazing.
yes, yes. So what's on your to-do list? Where would you like to investigate?
Well, interestingly enough, I've always wanted to go to Gettysburg. That's sort of
Ah,
like big
that's a
time.
doable one, though. That's
So it is
doable.
totally
Mhm.
doable. So that's a big thing that I'd like to do. Um, but really, at one point in my life, I wanted to go to Banff, to go to the Banff Springs Hotel, which I actually did do.
Mhm.
Oh gosh, I'm going to say 2003, 2004, which
Mhm.
was phenomenal. That was just incredible. Had some great experiences there. Um,
Right.
but I don't know, like, I wanna go back to the old country. Like, my relatives are from Slovakia, and there are some
Oh,
amazing castles there that I'd love to go and explore. And I don't know, I just get this, old European thing in my head. I just wanna do that. I wanna go and see
why not?
what that's
Do
all
it.
about, right? I should.
Yeah.
I should one day.
Well, because I think you could get yourself into the language, you could get yourself again, an energy thing. This is your thing,
Yes, it's the
you know?
energy thing, right? It's
Yeah,
the energy thing.
yeah. You
Yeah.
might you would probably do really well.
I would love to do that. I would love to do that. Romania has always been interesting to me as
I
well.
love Romania. I
Yeah.
loved it. Spent weeks
Love
there.
to.
It was just phenomenal. I don't think there's any place that I went in Romania that didn't stay with me. I always say no matter where I go, I leave a piece of myself and I take a piece with me. But
Right.
it's just, and sometimes there are places where, you say, well, I like to go to the castles. The castles are like crickets, like there's nothing going on.
Right.
Yet I'm sitting here one morning and we're at at the base of Braun Castle. They have a lot of what they call villas. And it's like 6:30 in the morning. I am just asleep. Melissa's, she's sacked out. All of a sudden, right in my ear, I hear really loud. I wake up, guns ablazing. I'm going to kill you, whoever just did that. And I automatically look at Melissa, who, by the way, it would have to be a freight train coming through to wake her up. She's just out. And I'm just like, who just called me?
Wow.
Like a whispering, really loud, to the point where I just, I'm up, you know. You're looking at the gnome statue in the corner going, I hate
Right.
gnomes. I think this is, but it's just, it's where you don't always expect it either,
That's so true. That's so true. Oh, yeah.
Hoya Baciu Forest delivered for us. It did.
Yeah.
It delivered for us on more levels than I could say. So you want to for sure experience, Lynda? Go to Hoya Baciu Forest. I guarantee you'll have one.
Oh,
It
yeah.
started for us at 3 in the afternoon, and it went until we left like 12 hours later.
But didn't
And
something
followed back to the hotel.
I was going to say something followed you. I remember that story. That freaked me out.
Yeah. Not so much me, but the girls. They had problems all the way back to Southern Ontario. I'm this big acknowledgement is empowerment. And I think I'm the only one they were recording. I'm the only one in the room going, God, I got internet friggin' finally. That's all I was doing
Oh
was
my.
catching up on email and communicating with people back home. And Melissa's like, do you hear this right now? Do you hear this? And there's walking around. And then her phone kept cutting out. And I'm going, but I got internet. so,
Oh my God.
so things followed them back because they were just so, I mean, Adriana was upstairs, with her friends, and same thing. The phones kept ringing, walking around. But I mean, you know what? It's a whole thing that went on in that forest led to everything else.
Wow.
And I, always being stellar, behave myself. I can't always say the same thing, but so yeah, it was a gift that kept on giving for a while for them, but it did follow back, and all night long there were things that
Incredible.
happened.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
That's incredible.
it's unbelievable. We came to find out it was under a no-fly zone. We came to find out that it's believed, it's the Bermuda Triangle. It is Romania's Bermuda Triangle.
Right.
There's a lot of stories about that there.
Right.
And we found all that out. And there's this loud droning noise, which a lot of people believe is a portal.
Right.
You can hear it.
There was a show that I watched. I can't even remember the name of it. But I think Josh Gates was on that show.
And it was Destination Truth.
That's it.
And they were there
did
twice, and they had horrific experiences
They
both
did.
times.
They
And
did.
the people who actually filmed for them was the University of Cluj, and the
Really?
haunted, like Hoya Baciu is in Cluj, so their university did the filming. It's pretty dangerous for some people. Yet other people go camping up there. I'm like, I'm down for camping. What the heck? Let's do this. I had a nap in the forest when I got there, just like laying there, just taking it all in. It delivered. It delivered instantly.
That's amazing.
Instantly.
I would love that. I would
People
love
are
that.
just like, oh, you want to be there the night of the supermoon because you want all this energy. I'm like, no, I just have a 4-kilometer walk out of the stinking forest. I want to see my way out in the middle of the night.
Oh my God.
It's just like, oh, yes, this energy thing. No, man, it's a safety thing. It's just my common sense kicking in there for a moment. But, I highly recommend to any of the listeners that really want like an amazing experience. Yes, Hoya Baciu will deliver. I've never met anybody who hasn't gone who has not had some kind of an experience.
Wow. And I'm assuming people go there just so that they can experience stuff.
They do. You have to be careful because there's two circles
Ah,
in the forest,
okay.
and the GPS, if you're not careful, will take you around to the other one. The one you need to go to, you're literally going up like this mountain, basically this hill. It's at the very top of all of that. The other one is just down further, and eh, it's a very extraordinary place, to say the least. I wanted to do it. I walked in. As soon as we walked into the forest part itself, even before the circle, you realize there are no birds. We saw no birds. We heard no birds. We saw insects. It was quiet, eerily quiet, except for that droning sound. It was just weird. It's hard to explain, but you really do get sucked into it for real. It's just like, yeah, but it's cool. It's really cool.
That is
Um,
really neat.
Tamara, French soldier. Oh, I had a French soldier run through me at the New York fort. He did not know he was dead, yelling at me in French. It was a strange experience, and he broke my camera. What did your camera say? What kind of camera was it? Because Wayne's got a story about that when he was there with a friend and something kept touching the camera. We had
Oh,
this long lens on it, and it was a Canon camera. So Canon. I wonder. Yeah, they said it was really wild. It was a pretty interesting experience. It was a Canon. Shocker.
it was a
See?
cannon.
Canon. Canon. I know. See, there you go. That's the
That's
same thing
crazy.
he said. Well,
That's
think
crazy.
about it. I mean,
Makes sense. Makes
I don't
sense.
know. Makes you wonder now, that's for sure.
It's true enough.
Oh, have either of you ever had an experience that made you want to step away from investigating? Lynda, take her away.
Um, Early on, when I first started, when I was really young, I was almost hit by a crystal ashtray that was incredibly heavy that flew from the top of a mantle on a fireplace, and literally I could hear it
Wow.
go right past my ear and hit the wall behind me. And that was after I said, well, I don't know, really, is it that busy in here?
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah. So you were sort of targeted there.
I was targeted. And honestly, I think at that point, I had been investigating for maybe 6 months. I was 18 years old, and that was a long
Wow.
time ago. So it was
Wow.
almost, I took it as a warning to me. Like,
Right.
no, don't question things
This isn't
too
for
much.
you.
Yeah,
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
I took it as a warning that, really take things at face value. And
Yeah.
ever
Yeah.
since then, I really have, and I've tried to be as careful as humanly possible.
So it
Um,
humbles you, basically.
it does, and it was my warning to not get too haughty, to kind of go, well, I got this in the bag,
Right.
because no,
That can happen.
you don't. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think it's not even so much being cocky. I think it's a matter of just if you're overconfident, you're going in for a good time. You know what I mean? Or like, I mean, let's face it, we're all excited. We go in, it's this energy, and not everything wants to be poked and prodded. Not everything wants the intrusion.
Yeah,
So I could definitely see that. For me, it was just my daughter losing her sight after being at a really malevolent case,
right, right.
and that humbled me because, I always say I'm very fearless, or I'm just a meathead. It's one of the two. But I am on an average pretty fearless, and I try to be considerate. But I did go in pretty confident because if I'm going to go in and do something, and you're going in on behalf of the individual that you're helping, you're taking the weight for a little while. So you have to go in with a degree of confidence. But at that point, it straightened me out because I never worried about things coming after me, but I didn't think that the camp would be infiltrated, so to speak. And that set precedence. I would not let it take me away from helping people or investigating, but it set precedence from that point on as to how I did things moving forward. And I've stuck with it like 20 years later. So that's that. Wes says, oh, you guys are going to the haunted forest. Let's go.
I'd like to do that, Wes.
Here we go. Get your
It's a date.
camping gear.
It's a date. I'm in. I'm in.
There we go. I'm glad you.
Aw,
Yeah,
team.
Bonnie. Glad you enjoyed. So after the ashtray thing, Wes says that you did quit smoking. There we
I
go.
love it. That's funny.
So Wayne says, pertaining back to the soldier with the camera, goes, the officer knocked the camera out of her hands. Goes, I want to shoot this officer's quarters. He went to take photos of the officer's quarters.
Okay.
And that's what she said. I want to shoot this officer's quarters. And as she went to take the picture, the camera literally flew out of her hands. And if not for the strap, it would have hit the floor. It was a very powerful hit.
Wow.
So that's going back to the fort, the same fort. Hello, Corinne. And Bart, would you request angels and archangels to surround and protect you as a precaution?
I say, why not? And the reason I say that is I've had so many people that I've worked with throughout the years who have been, I guess, tied to a certain religious persuasion. So some of them have been Catholic, some of them have been pagans, some of them have been Jewish. And however they feel protected is what I always say to them to do. If you feel that you need the archangels to protect you, absolutely call on them. If you have a particular spirit guide that protects you in whatever you do, call on that particular spirit guide. However you feel protected and most, beneficial in what you're doing, absolutely call in whatever you feel is necessary for protection. Absolutely.
Perfect. I have to do a really quick sponsor ID and station ID. So for this, those of you just tuning in, shame on you. Should have been here an hour and a half ago. Kidding. Better late than never. But you are listening to The Outer Realm here in the United Public Radio Network, UFO Paranormal Radio Network 105.3 and 107.7 FM from the beautiful city of New Orleans. We are fully sponsored by the amazing people at Folgers Coffee and Dr. Snick, Justin Snicker, the sonic surgeon, and of course, Steve McGinnis. So big round of thank you and appreciation for our sponsors. And if you are just tuning in, we are with Lynda Quirino, who is one of my compadres from Paranormal Survivor. So, of course, you gotta love her, right? So anyway, back. It was nice and quick. See, Amelia usually does this nice long drawn out thing. I was like, no, because I realized I'm already late and doing it. So I miss you, Bubbles. But no, actually, that was a great one. A lot of people, wherever you find your need, whatever makes you feel safe, do it.
Yes.
I am not an Aries. I am a stubborn Taurus.
Oh my gosh, me too.
There we
me
go.
Too.
I know. I miss Bubbles too, Tamara. I know.
Me too.
Oh. That's pretty bad. I give her a nickname and now everybody, the whole world calls her Bubbles.
I like it. I think it's great. It just suits her so well. Yeah,
it does. She's a bubbly little thing for sure. Yes. Oh, Wes, everybody chime in. Hugs, group hug. Send it to Bubbles.
Oh.
Well, so okay. So we're basically, you have a date to go to Gettysburg. What do you have coming up? Do you have any fun stuff coming up with your research? Do you have any filming coming up? Do you just have any special events coming up?
Well, we have a public meeting coming up, January 26th, which I love. I love those public meetings. And right now, as the team comes back from all of their holiday shenanigans,
I love it.
I want to get them together so that we can plan our year. And what we'd love to do is do more public investigations. And I don't normally call them investigations. I call them walkabouts because there are purportedly haunted locations close to home that
Mm,
I really want people to experience. And when I say
right.
experience, I want them to experience the atmosphere there.
Hmm.
So we lose people, Michelle, sometimes because we
Yeah.
have these public walkabouts and they come and they think it's going to be, like we're going to run around and chase ghosts and things with all kinds of equipment, but that's not really what we do. We
Hmm.
learn about the history of the location. We want people to
Important.
immerse themselves in the
Hmm.
atmosphere of the location. So yeah, hopefully we're going to have a lot more of them coming up this year.
Hmm.
Yeah, so far our meeting is coming up. We
Right.
have a guest speaker, hopefully I can get him to confirm this week, talking about past life regression.
Ooh,
Ooh, there's some,
those are fun.
right?
Yeah, yeah, those are fun. I love it. I love it.
That's fun.
I don't know. I always have. I've done them, and I have found out. I think when you do your first little bit, and then you find that it just all starts pouring in. And I was always kind of on the fence with it because it's a cruel joke that we can't remember our past lives, but yet you're gonna come here, you're gonna, do it right this time. Well, how do I know? Maybe I'll do it worse because for some reason you just won't let me remember. Like it's a cruel joke. But can you imagine? And maybe this is something, for your guests, but can you imagine all the loves that you've had and lost, family, loved ones, spouses? I tend to wonder if that's part of it all. Like, could we survive that loss, like without grieving your whole way through, right? Because we don't always come back with one another.
No, that's true. Yeah, I think about that too. And I think about the people that talk about past life regression and that always say, we tend to forget because if we
Mm,
were to remember the overwhelming sensations that we
yeah.
would face might be so overwhelming. And then I think, well, but if we're doing past life regression,
Mhm. Are we
then
ready
right?
to a
And
degree?
right, and are we really remembering, or are we glossing over certain
Okay,
aspects, right? Are we
that's a good
gloss
way of looking at it.
right? So maybe we are. I don't know. I've had it done twice,
Mhm.
um, and I think I can say it was kind of successful. I mean, I seemed to remember certain things, but there was one past life regression where and I remember that I was in childbirth. I was looking at my body and I was having a child, but I was dying as I was having.
Oh, wow. That's profound.
It was really profound. And I can remember feeling this horrendous grief and yet being above it. So kind of like an OBE, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It
still
was
though.
interesting, but not really like looking at it from a very detached point of view. And I
Mhm,
guess you have to kind of do that. Otherwise, can you imagine
mhm.
if you actually remembered? The grief would be so overwhelming.
It is. I've had one of those experiences where I've had, like, a husband from another life,
Right.
come through, and I feel bad for the ones whom I don't know. Like, you get familiar with some of them through that contact, and then others you don't know, they just wander in. They know you, but you're kinda like, "I'm sorry, I don't know you."
Yeah.
And it's really hard, but I did have it where a husband came through and came in a visitation one night, and we were both it's funny because I'm looking at him, like, at his burial, and he's standing beside me, and he's all light, and he's just, like, all I see is this, like, figure of light with his arm on my shoulder, and I'm looking at he's here, and I'm looking at him, and I'm grieving, and it was really hard to shake that one. I have to say, I could see why, because it took me, like, months to lose that image, and even now, I don't think it'll ever be gone,
Yeah.
but can you if you were doing that time after time, I can't even imagine, you
Yeah. I
know?
can't either. I can't.
Yes, but
Honestly, how do you not, how do you get beyond that?
if
How
it's a
do you?
child, especially like you were You know, like you already looking at yourself giving birth to your child and you already know you're not going to be there, which
Exactly.
is that would to me, I'd be bawling I'd still be bawling. So,
It's so
you know,
sweet.
I would, it would be hard. Trish says, do you think, just so everybody knows, Trish has a show on Monday nights, okay, which is like 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern, called The Missing Piece. So check her out. Do you guys think, or do you think that these locations have more interaction for some are actually themselves in a past life and time, and they are called back to, yeah, called back to learn something or remember? Ooh, it's a deep one. Thanks for that one, Trish. Yeah, did you get it? So do you think these locations that have more, the locations that have more interaction for some people are actually themselves in a past life and time, or they're called back to learn something or remember? I guess it could have something to do with like a deja vu thing too, in a way.
That's kind of an interesting concept.
Mm-hmm.
That is an interesting concept. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I have been in certain locations where, for example, this is a good example maybe, as a child, we used to go to Vermont a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And there are certain locations that I can remember going to as a child in Vermont and feeling this deep connection there, almost as
Mm-hmm.
if I was called back there for a reason.
Oh,
I know. And
there you
now at
go.
my age, I'd like to go back and see
If it does the
how,
same.
yeah, exactly. One of those places was actually Wilson Castle, but that's another story.
Press.
Right, Wilson
Get,
Castle. That's
get out
hilarious.
of Linda's head.
Yeah, get out of my head, Wes. What are you doing?
You're sharing a brain right now. Stop it.
It's true,
So,
though. It's true, though.
oh my gosh, that's so funny.
It's true.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a great idea. A different perception for
Mhm.
sure. It's like some people will tell you that ghosts, and I always razz my producer about this because he always says it, but that ghosts may be dimensional bleed-throughs,
Right. Right. Oh my gosh. Now there's a
right?
concept.
I know. Because I always razz him. You know, he'll say something like, "Oh, what, like dimensional bleed through?" But then I laugh because I'm like, "Damn it, I think it might be." You know, it's
I
a
like
really
it.
yeah, it's a really strong theory. I do definitely think it could be that, or um, people. You know, like it's all simultaneous lives. You know, you hear the theory that when you have a demon, for example,
Yes.
demon mimicking your loved one, there's always something about it that's a little bit different. Maybe the clothes are too big.
Right.
Maybe there's different facial expression or their hair is a bit different. It's the same thing with dimensional beings and dimensional bleed throughs. And what was interesting is my mother one night, when my father went into assisted living, she said he came at night. She goes, I could touch him. He was physical. I'm going, what?
Whoa.
And he was alive. And she goes, yeah, but his clothes were too big for him. Just like, back away. She goes, I didn't interact, you know, but yeah, right. And he was definitely alive and well. This has happened to her on a couple of occasions where she could feel him. And the whole dimensional bleed through, I mean, if we do the theory that we can exist in so many different dimensions or timelines is correct. I mean, doppelgangers, is that a thing? Like, are we just crisscrossing a little bit?
Whoa. Well, that's an interesting concept, actually, when you think about that.
Hmm.
Huh. Have you ever experienced that doppelganger phenomenon?
I haven't personally, but I've had people say to me, you know, you have a doppelganger
Yeah.
around, and I'm just like, you cannot match his hair. Like, seriously, like, you know, I have this hair because it's just, I've had it for so long, this color. I've thought about changing it, and people are like, what? No, don't do that. I'm
No.
like, so, okay, whatever. So it's not like it's an easy thing to miss. If a doppelganger is allegedly your exact replica.
Right.
So it's like, why? So I don't know, but I've had people say that. So I don't know.
Wow. I think it's interesting that whole idea that there's just something off about
Mm,
that person, because I
right.
think we've all had that happen in our lives. I mean, I have, for
Hmm.
sure. For sure.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's
How's that?
different.
Did you experience it personally?
Yeah, I actually did experience it personally as a child. I My best friend. I really thought that she was there. We were supposed to meet her, a friend and I, at the mall, and we were yelling, saying, I won't say her name because she's probably, thinking you're crazy. But honestly, I'll call her Maud. But we
Mhm.
were both yelling, Maud, Maud. And this person turned and looked at both of us, and it was her. And yet it wasn't her, and yet it wasn't her, and then disappeared in the crowd. But it
Oh,
looked
see, that's
almost
crazy.
exactly like her, except for the fact that her eyebrows were slightly different. I'll never forget that.
So see, it's that little difference
It
right
was that
there.
small little je ne sais quoi.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
See, which is that dimensional bleed through thing. That's interesting. Tamara
yeah.
says, I wonder if dimensional bleed through is when you get information you shouldn't know, but you just know the answer. Hmm.
Hmm,
I don't
hmm.
know. I think anything is a possibility at this
Oh,
point,
anything.
seriously.
It's
But
true.
there's always some kind of physical flaw. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. There's always a physical flaw. And that's what my mother was saying. And I find it interesting because this is the whole demonic thing where people are like, oh, there's always something very different when they mimic. There's always one thing off. Same thing with the doppelganger, always one thing off.
Yeah,
Dimensional bleed throughs, one thing off. Because if you're living simultaneous lives, dimensionally speaking, of course,
right.
it's going to be different. Their
That's true.
lives are just different. It doesn't mean they're mirror images of one another. It just means your image, or is it that the soul splits, or is it that the body is the same? And you know what I'm saying? Now you're getting into this like technical.
Yeah, it's true. It's very technical. I mean, for example, I suppose this is a good example. Maybe after my father passed, my father came to me in a dream, and this is a vivid dream that I actually wrote down, and I revisited it like last year when I was rereading some of my diaries, some of my journals.
Mhm.
Um, it was so vivid because he came to me in a dream. It was about a month after he passed, and he was telling me things and asking me to follow him down this path. And it was my dad, but it wasn't my dad. And I kept saying, but dad, you're different. You're different. There's something about you that's different. And he would say to me, oh, no, 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 I'm not different. No, 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 just come with me because there's a few things that I really want to show you.
Oh,
He
see.
sounded like my father. He looked like my father. But the funniest, weirdest thing, you're going to laugh, was that he didn't smell like my father. And in the dream,
Oh.
yeah, he did not smell like my dad. My dad wore brute
Cologne.
whatever
Yeah.
aftershave, right?
Cologne. The man
That
perfume.
smell,
Yeah.
right? That smell I associated with my dad. In my dream, he looked like my
Wow.
dad, but he didn't smell like my dad. And there was something off about him. And I was terrified in this dream.
Mhm.
And I kept saying, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, because it's not dad. And I wrote it down because it was that vivid. And I often wonder, what the heck did that mean? And who was it? What
Well,
was it?
yeah, because visitations and dreams are both very different. And in a visitation, like you just know that it is your loved one. You're getting a message. You're getting a visit.
Yeah,
Whereas the dreams are just that they go all over the place. And I
right.
think you would have experiences like that. That's really fascinating.
Yeah. I've
I don't
often
know.
wondered, yeah, what the heck did that mean? And what was I going through in my life at that time
Right.
that make my subconscious do that? Or did something permeate my
Hmm.
subconscious? There you go.
Right.
Right.
I think that's start writing down dreams. Yes, I think that's really important. I'll tell you, I have a friend who did just that. And he was told, write everything down, even if it makes sense or if it doesn't make sense. So he started writing just all this random stuff. He would even do drawings and things like that. I mean, 6, 7, 8 years, 10 years later, they were like premonitions. He goes, yeah, all this has happened. And he just started reading off some of the things that he wrote down. Like, let's say in 95, for example, he goes, yeah, this has happened in the last like 5 years. I'm just like, what? He goes, yeah. Like, and this was, the person who told him to do it was just really wise. It was probably one of like the best authors out of the specific genre of this man's research that was out there. And they just met and he just knew to tell him, because you need to write all of this stuff down. It may not make any sense to you, like out of nowhere. And he's like, okay. And he just did it. And it was out of the norm for him because he has a photographic memory. He doesn't need any, but he just started doing it. So I absolutely believe, yeah, Gord, for sure. You write them down. I write down very obscure things. And then I find after a while I can connect them. Like, but do you find you can't remember dreams? What do you do at that point? Do you ever find you dreamt like crazy, but you can't remember a darn thing of it?
Yeah. And that's why they say you should always just pick up that pen as soon as, right? And write it all down. But it's like, right? I know. I'm like, I'm sorry, but my alarm just went off and I have to take a shower because I have to do this, that, and the other all the time right now.
I know. It's like, gosh, maybe just that. Maybe just having like a bathroom break. You can't even think straight because it's 5 a.m. And then you don't get the dream after that. It just stops. Must have been Be by Dad, Lynda. He wore Brute too. Oh, my dad.
Oh, your dad too. Really? Oh, that's kind of cool. That's kind of cool.
I've had numerous people tell me that they met my twin. They even sounded like me when we spoke. And then he goes, I won't even go there. It's like, whatever. Poor bastard, he says. Kenny, that's when you are experiencing an interpretation of two people in your life and they mix together. What's the reason? I don't know. Makes sense. Tamara says, only started dreaming again since the pandemic. Isn't that bizarre? I wonder if it's just that we're all more relaxed.
Maybe. Maybe. We're open, right? We're open.
Yeah. It would be interesting. Interesting how, Kenny? Is it a good interesting?
Elaborate.
Or do we just have to poke it with a stick and see if it's safe to go in? What is it?
That'd be good. That would really be good.
I'm a bit nervous. Time travel is suddenly exposed and has to abort the mission. That's just Wayne hamming it up.
You just
Trish, the average adult forgets a dream 5 minutes after they wake. I use a note recorder. Some don't even sound like me. Oh, that's bizarre.
Wow.
Note to self, try that. Thanks for that tidbit. What? This one? Oh, we're going to the next one. Okay.
All right.
Gord, I would have to write it down right away. I almost never remember the details after about 20 minutes. Note back to this comment. Use a note recorder.
That's bizarre. But you know what, Michelle? I don't know if you've experienced this, but I do this quite often where I don't remember a dream. And then, later on in the day, I'll be doing something and all of a sudden, boom, it's like all of a sudden I remember this dream or snippets of this dream so vividly. And it's like, where's a piece of paper? I need to write this down.
Yeah. Did you get one little snippet of it? But sometimes that's all you need.
Yes.
Right. Yes. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
Lori, where's the best place to start learning how to do remote viewing? Ooh, that one. There's a lot of courses online for remote viewing, unless you're a natural remote viewer. Amelia, for example, is a natural RV. She doesn't go through all the processes. I know a lot of remote viewers. I've had so many just offer, I think we all do it. Well, those who do it a bit differently. For me, I see things like everything might as well just be a matrix or a grid. I don't see things like I'm looking at you clearly. Amelia does, being natural at it. She just does. I have an ability where I can tap into people and then I could see through that person. And that's what I can do with her. So she makes it fun because she like misbehaves when we're working. I'm like, get back over here. Why don't you go up there in a bad territory? She goes, sorry, Mom. And back as she goes, it can be entertaining to have to listen to us working. It's pretty amusing. But there are people who do tests. I'm just trying to think here. There's one who does remote viewing classes. I'm going to see if I can get you guys a name right now. Just bear with me, and I will give you a name. 1 minute, 1 minute.
Good question, Lori. Really good.
Michelle Freed. So Michelle Freed is a friend of mine. She's also an agent. But she actually trained with the CIA, and she does remote viewing classes. So you can go check her out online. And again, there are many people who do it. She's again, because she's a friend. So I'm going to be always plugging my friends and my compadres. So I would definitely say check her out. Okay, where are we going? I'm trying to catch up. Hold on. Okay, here we go. Government agencies hijacking your dreams in order to try to figure out your abilities. Just a thought. I've actually heard that. In fact, here's something interesting. I just listened to this. People send me really interesting things. And someone sent me a video of an interview today of a woman who I guess went into, okay, we're going to get out there again with the space program in the US.
Right.
And she saw different things. And I won't say what she say, but she saw a giant. But what she did talk about seeing this giant. And they were torturing him, but they had this device. It was like a reverse engineered Tesla device where they were pulling the essence from him. And she claimed that governments of the world can definitely do this with people.
Wow.
So she said, just, look at your home as your little matrix prison. And they do, especially if you're someone of interest, they would know pretty much what your pattern are when you're asleep. And the cell phone apparently is a good way. What they do is don't take your essence, they take energy from you. And this is a way that they can do it. Yeah. So like for this being that she saw, it was more of an essence thing because they just kept draining the energy and the life from this person, this individual. But for us regular folk, that they can take energy from you. And that's what all these devices do, and all of these crazy cell towers and things like that. So that just came to me basically. Like I just got a whiff of this morning when someone sent me this link, and I was just like, and the person doing the interview, I mean, this is his field of research. So I thought,
I don't like that.
I know. Tamara put tinfoil on the phone. Or just maybe don't keep it next to the bed. I don't know. Always promotes me. If you need a good prison guard, okay, absolutely. Your name's right up here in lights, my friend. So there we go. But yeah, so I don't know. It's I think we are in crazy times, and people are definitely coming out with some interesting things. And I don't know if it's because they're getting really wild imaginations, and your logical self goes, no, but then your open-minded self goes, or is it that they're just more perceptive now, like we've talked about? They're just more aware. Maybe they're just watching more television, listening to more radio shows, or just reading more on an average.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know, but all I know is this time has just flown by, and it was just such a pleasure to have you on. So tell everybody how to find you.
Well, you can always find me on Facebook. Georgina Paranormal Society. You can send me a message. Georgina Paranormal at gmail.com. And you know what? You can find us pretty much through Facebook. You can find the website information. It's always a pleasure to speak with people. And thank you so much, Michelle. I feel so honored to have been the first guest of 2023.
I am really honored that you would come on. It's always so much fun. And unfortunately, I don't know if you'll be able to come and see the house before it's gone, but it loved you.
You know what? I loved it too. It was a wonderful house, and that's okay. We will get together at some point for sure.
We will. I'll be closer because I'll be going back to Burlington, but I'll send you something from the house. I'll send you something from the structure. we've done some restorations. So there's some really cool things. So I will send you something. So you'll always have a little part of it with you.
Oh, well, that's wonderful. Thank you so much.
No, you're welcome, darling. So I will be in touch. You will hear from me in a little while.
Perfect.
Okay. So thank you.
Thank
Mwah.
you. Happy New Year.
All right, darling. Good night. Well, everybody, we have come to the end of another fantastic segment. And wow, the chat room was just on fire. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Also, big thank you to Folgers Coffee for being Folgers Coffee and having your faith in us. Big thank you to Dr. Snick, Justin Snicker, the sonic surgeon. And big thank you to Steve McGinnis. We appreciate you all so much. So wherever you are watching the show tonight, either like us, please subscribe, join, follow, whatever the case may be. We appreciate you all so much, and you do make the show that much better. Tomorrow night, yes, tomorrow night, we have our 300th episode of The Outer Realm. And put your questions together for whatever it may be, paranormal, UFOs, because Joe Montaldo is going to be joining me, Mr. UFO, and he's going to go ahead and answer those questions. I figure if he's going to hijack the show, he may as well do it with somebody who knows what he's talking about. So that's what I say. So let's just connect up. It'll be a lot of fun. And yeah, so all of you behave, and we will see you tomorrow night. And again, thank you to everybody. And thank you guys in chat. You've been awesome.